Fellas, 14 team playoff. It seems all but certain that we're headed down that road. We've talked about it kind of ad nauseum at this point, but between our last episode and this one, when we took a break from discussing the politics of it all, reports came out that hey, this is probably about to happen as far as being signed into legislation. Right, wouldn't start until 2026, so we'll have 2 years of 12 team playoffs that we still get to enjoy, but with all the major conferences signing deals with the college football playoff committee, Notre Dame as well. Trey, it really feels like this is all but a done deal. It officially has to go to a vote once a new TV deal is structured, but I mean, the writing's on the wall at this point.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because we didn't even get to see a 12-team playoff on the field before we decided to expand to 14. And that's really frustrating to me. I think we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. I think 12 is perfect. And we looked back all the way to 1998. You can read articles. Just shout out to the ESPN Plus article by Bill Connolly. If you have ESPN Plus, go look at his breakdown of expanded playoffs all the way back to 1963, I think it was, or something like that. It it just screams perfection. He actually does go all the way up to 16 in that article, but I think 12 is perfect. And I think we're going to see on the field this fall just how perfect it is. And we're going to be kicking ourselves a little bit that 14, we expanded to it without even seeing 12 on the field first.
I agree. Just we talked about it. I wanted to get our parting shot in. I'll before I kick it to you, Garrett. I'll say this: top five conference champs would get an automatic bid with 9 at-large slots. So you do the quick math. That's going to likely be the 4 power conferences and their conference champion getting auto bid. So bid stealing is in effect, right? Hypothetically, you could have an 8-4 Iowa sneak up and get an undefeated Ohio State, and just like that, well, I
Which was
guess
really fun this past weekend on the basketball court. It made it a lot more dramatic.
that's true. I guess that's with division, so not technically that way, but you get the point. You can have bid thieves, secure a spot in the college football playoff, and then you'd have the next 9 top ranked teams get their slots. Some have said that this will include more G5 teams. Some have said it will exclude the G5. Garrett, do you have a leaning on which way that ends up going as we sit here, 2.5 years out?
I, for one, am looking forward to the days that we get 12 of those teams being from, the SEC or the Big Ten. I'm so looking forward to that. You're mentioning, an 8-4 Iowa sneaking in, and for a second I was like, what happened to the Big Ten that the top 2 records were undefeated and 8-4? I was a little bit concerned for a
Don't worry
second.
about that.
Yeah, I was a little concerned. I was like, what happened to Oregon? We haven't even seen them in the conference. So no, but I'm when we looked at the idea of moving to 12 and the reason we wanted to expand it was, a lot of the reason we've talked about on the channel is that you don't end up leaving anybody out, right? With 4, there's always some, well, did you actually mess up? Is number 5 actually one of the better teams? And, like with this last year, okay, well, you left out Georgia. You can't tell me they're not one of the best teams. And, we left out Florida State, who really deserved it and everything else. With 12, you get the whole thing, right? You make sure that you cover it, right? We know that 10, 11, and 12 probably don't have a real shot, and, probably they don't really deserve to be there. And, they're just kind of grabbing onto those extra couple of seeds at the end. But, just because you can add and grow stuff doesn't mean that you necessarily should. Yeah, we'll get more games. Yeah, there'll be more playoff games, I suppose, and that could be fun to watch. But, at a certain point, we're just adding to add. It doesn't really match up with like the logistical growth curve and like making sure like, hey, there's like a point where it evens off and we've kind of gotten the max value out of what we can actually expect. I think 12 is pretty much that max value where you can say, yeah, you're going to get everybody. There's going to be a couple teams that maybe don't deserve it. Maybe they could sneak up and grab somebody, but probably not. And, unfortunately, now we're just going to add a couple more teams. And, for all the people who are the anti-expansionists and are like, well, see, I told you. It's like, no, this isn't what we said. If tomorrow the, NCAA tournament and basketball decided, we're going from 64 to 128, we wouldn't be like, well, I'm sure glad we, could have stuck to lower than 64. Like 64 is the right number for basketball, and 12 is probably the right number for football.
I will
I-
say I don't think 14 is as bad as 16 though, so I'm thankful that we're
Sure.
not jumping all the way to 16.
Yet.
There's still going to be some battle for those 2 buys, and we do the bright spot. I'm just trying to look at this from all possible angles and maybe get a bright spot. We get 2 more games on campus, and 2 more teams get to host a
True.
game on campus as well. So that's what I'm trying to tell myself to tell myself that this is okay. And it's not 16. 16 is just doesn't make any sense. You don't reward the number 1 team other than playing the 16 seed.
Yeah, I agree. I think, a lot of details still obviously to be figured out and finalized. As I mentioned earlier, this is awaiting a new TV deal before anything would become official, but the deals between the conferences and the college football playoff, plus Notre Dame inking a deal with the college football playoff, it seems like this is all but certain. The financials, as we understand them, the SEC and the Big Ten would get $21 million of revenue share per year. The ACC would get $13 million. The Big 12 and Notre Dame get $12 million each, while the Group of Five schools get 1.8. That's up from 1.5 in the current agreement. So,
It's just wild that Notre Dame is getting as much as the Big 12. That's insane.
I was gonna say they finally found the end of the rainbow, apparently.
well, Notre Dame might have as many playoff appearances as the Big 12. We'll see how that all shakes out, especially if the detractors of this are saying, well, great, this just becomes an SEC versus Big 10 round robin, if you will. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. We'll see how everything plays out. I'm hopeful that at least having playoff games on a college campus really brings some excitement to that first round of the playoffs. And I don't know if competition wise, if we're really going to get a steep drop off between 12 and 14 teams. I kind of doubt it, but I think it's just the principle of it all, right? That we agreed on 12, and then before we've even seen that in action, there was a chance to make that much more money, and so we're going to do that, and we're just going to sign that deal into law. And too many cooks in the kitchen. Too many cooks in the kitchen. I think it all boils down to that. Let us know. 12, 14, 16, BCS. I mean, heck, we've had conversations with BCS supporters in the past, so I'd love to know where you stand on all this at 3Tech Pod on YouTube in the comments. Hash it out. Let us know, and Twitter, Instagram as well.
As long as you don't think we should go back to the AP poll, we are open to your opinion. If you think we should go back to the AP poll crowning a champion, you are wrong, and we will tell you you're wrong.
I think some guys at the newspaper should choose the champion.
Newspaper writers that probably aren't even watching the games anyway. But
Go read
Trey,
that Bill Connolly article, man. Like, if you need a trip down memory lane, like we found a champion in BYU that beat a 4-7 Pitt team and a 6-5 Michigan team, and no other teams with a winning record, and said, "Yeah, that sounds good. National champs."
I mean, the Sugar Bowl fix in early November, deciding, hey, we're gonna bring the Who's to town. The Cavs are coming to NOLA, baby. We're gonna decide that early and absolutely hose the rest of competition in the sport. Yeah, broken system. So anyway, we won't be going back to that.
Gracious, how about